Hello everyone, this is Phil Wolf with PDWare. PDWare is the market leader in providing active resource planning solutions. We say active because we specialize in situations where priorities, staff, and schedules are all highly dynamic. In today's presentation, I will focus on applying a practical approach to understanding and improving resource utilization. These points focus on developing a skilled resource pool, forecasting, and adopting metrics for better management. First of all, let's talk about utilization. Utilization is a metric that is generally determined by dividing resource demand by resource capacity, also known as supply. Many of you will be familiar with the basic form of this equation. At PDWare, we also like to consider resource demand in two parts: the part that is achievable and the part that is, at least for the moment, unachievable. We can call this unsatisfied or unfulfilled demand. The achievable part is determined by resource allocation, which we define as the prioritized assignment of resources to projects. Allocation differs from demand as a metric because it cannot exceed the available supply, or in other words, allocation reaches 100% at the point where all resources are fully assigned to the most important projects. Allocation is one part of the productivity equation. The other part of the productivity equation, note in the slide, the metaphoric picture of the scale, is capacity, also known as supply. The scale represents balance because when resource allocation approaches capacity, utilization also approaches 100%. And this leaves the organization in a highly productive state. For this reason, we can also treat productivity as an index, where 1.0 represents a productive balance between allocation and capacity. Now, if all work and all resources were the same, achieving an index score of 1.0 would be easy, right? Except, not all headcount are created equal. Resources have different types and different skills, and they carry unique values and costs depending on their profile. At some point, the person and the work need to match up, and herein lays the challenge. This is why managing capacity, as well as managing allocations, requires a clear understanding of the resource pool. At a minimum, planners need to consider the following factors: availability, cost, skills, and skill proficiency. That totals 4 core factors. Some companies consider as many as 7 to 10 factors when completing a resource assignment. Our goal today is to stimulate you with a set of reports or lenses that will offer a multidimensional view into the resource pool and your productivity index. These views were created in PDWare, but in theory they could be developed in another reporting application or even Microsoft Excel. I thought, rather than read through them, I will show them to you. Let us begin with a view of capacity. All capacity management begins with an inventory of individuals and skills. This particular view shows availability by 2 dimensions, first by skill set and then by resource type, employee, contractor, etc. This report allows you to determine the kinds of resources that you have available for fit and whether they actually work for your company or as a contractor, which will determine their cost. This next view is also an inventory report, but it takes into consideration employee type and the corresponding cost rates over time. Since the cost of capacity represents a real cost of doing business, this view provides insight into the trade-offs of using different types of resources. Think of these numbers as the checks your CFO writes each month, whether you allocate these people productively or not. As discussed earlier, resource allocation is different than straight demand in that it can never exceed 100%, which represents a fully deployed resource. Summarizing allocation along different resource profiles will provide insight into areas where you may be overinvesting. Remember, the goal is to create a workforce of just the right size where all capacity is allocated. Now this view addresses the question, how much are we overpaying? Here are the results. When the utilization index is less than 1.0, it means that some of the resources are not deployed. The cost of that unutilized capacity also represents the unrealized value of bench time, which we also frequently call wasted hours. These are hours that we pay for but see no business value for. This is a good report because it highlights those inefficiencies that we are trying to avoid. Now let's consider unutilized cost by skill. We find that many companies have excess capacity and bottlenecks at the same time. This is usually due to a poor skill mix. Bottom line, something has to change. These people are getting paid, and their skill sets are not immediately useful to the organization. This information in this particular report identifies retraining and, where necessary, rehiring opportunities. Okay, now here is the other side of the story. This report shows where allocation is at 100%, but the total assignments still fall below demand. In other words, some of this work is not able to be fulfilled. In this scenario, some key resources will prove to be overutilized. The capacity in these skill areas is way too low for the organization to be successful. We now know that we are falling short in capacity across some areas. So the next logical step is to determine if we can tolerate the impact. The impact of shortfall or unsatisfied demand can be felt at all levels of planning, not just the project level. In this view, we show the programs that are affected. Now, in general, we find that understaffed projects will incur delays because the resources required and planned for are not truly available to work. As a result, the work they are supposed to do never gets done. This occurs all the time in organizations, but sometimes it requires this type of view, which hammers home the big picture for executives to take notice and then act. Finally, this last view is a little more advanced and probably not one that you can create until you have a strong demand and capacity management process in place. This view shows at different investment levels how the resource pool can be adjusted for maximum usefulness. For many companies, capacity is fixed in the short term. However, over the longer period, 6 months, 12 months, or even 18 months, there are generally opportunities to refine the resource pool, whether the headcount is growing or shrinking. This output represents a skills mix inefficiency that can be adjusted over time, so the company can achieve higher utilization levels and a hypothetical performance index much closer to 1.0. All it takes is the right process, the right tools, and some visibility. In closing, PDWare spends a lot of time focused on the challenges of improving utilization and performance. We just released a new white paper on the topic of dynamic capacity management. In that paper, we discuss these very lenses: management of the resource pool, and we touch on the productivity equation. You can download it now from our website. So if this topic has caught your interest, that would be a great follow-up to this event. Thank you very much.